Our class today, we are in the third part. Remember this is part of our first class where we looked into the strategic management process, the strategic brand management process. What is the outcome, the major outcome of your part one plan? Positioning statement. Yeah? So it's when you define the basic strategy. Okay? So the steps. Identify, establish the brand position. Okay? That was our first class, and that's part one of your plans. Then, last class, what did you see? Once we have the strategy and we know very well our positioning, what do we need to do? The brand elements, but why? Why do we define brand elements? It's the implementation. Yeah? So you defined your blend elements, you defined your personality, yeah? The personality and the marketing programs. Remember the marketing mix? So this is the first part of part two, okay? So think about the logic. It's very, very logic. You start with the strategy, you define your positioning statement, who you are, why you are here. Once you have that, it's a brand, so you need to express that to this external world. So the next step is, okay, so let us define how it look like, what are our tone of voice, and how we are going to organize the marketing programs, communication, price, product, to express that, okay? So that was last class. Today, so once all this is done, what is the logic next big step? You measure it, no? You needed to know whether you are succeeding on everything. This will require lots of investment, okay? That's where the money goes, yeah? So you needed to measure whether you are being successful, okay? Measure and manage the performance. So today class is that, okay? We are going to look into all the different ways that we measure whether we are being successful or not. Okay? So it's very logic. And the following class is going to be just going backwards to the communications, because it's online, but it's easy, no? So I'd rather have this on a face-to-face class, and I have another video for you guys focusing only on the different channels of communication. And then the last class is the fourth part of the brand management system, which is what? You create the strategy, you express the strategy to the world, you determine what works and what not works. Then what happens?
You start again.
You start again. Why?
To implement the things you learned.
And why do you do more? You grow.
To
grow. To grow. You grow, so you usually start one product, now you start a second brand, a co-branding, a sub-brand, all those, a brand architecture, because you're starting to grow. So that's our last class, okay? So this gives you the context. So you don't remember the logic. It's very logic, the steps. In each class we are going very deeply on the steps, and in the plan you're going to use all three, okay? Today you deliver this, part two you will deliver this too. We are not going to go into the grow and sustaining the plan, okay? So today, last class, it was the last class, and the next one you're going to use to create the programs for your brand. And in the part two, you will finish part two with how you're going to measure. And I brought you loads of examples today of real life, of how we measure our programs in Bullpie. I brought some examples of a full program and how we manage this. This is our class now. So, remember I'm just going again, this is our major, what we are doing here. Now we created the brand position, we created the brand personality, and now we have an identity, okay? And you should finish part one with your brand identity. Now, Part 2 starts, you recreate the elements, the communication, the programs, and that goes to the customers. And hopefully, if you did a good job, your identity will become the image in the consumer's mind. What we are going to do is check if that's happening. Yeah? So what are the tools that we use to check whether that's happening and whether your program, the investment, the money you were putting into all this is working, okay? So, so the question is, ultimately what we wanted to generate, like we saw in the first slide, is equity for the organization. So every year your boss, at the end of the year, you will have to prove that all the money that you put, all those campaigns, all those investments helped to increase the equity of the brand. Otherwise, he won't give you money again. It's that simple, okay? And if he or she's not doing that, you should act as if they were, okay? Because you needed to know if you're making good investments, okay? So, marketeers are held accountable, and every day more, because now with the digital channels, it's much easier to measure. When I started in this business, when you think about promotions are very easy to measure. Now advertising, when you do branding, so advertising, sponsorships, it has that gray area, okay? So we could get away a little bit for companies that have a lot of money. Now, with the digital channels, impossible. Because you can measure everything. It's very easy to measure. And please pay attention on your analytics course, because that's the depth of how you measure all this. Yeah, I'm going to just take you through the general tools, but the depth that you see is in the analytic course, and actually I have 2 people in the team who does that, the analytics, yeah? So, extremely important, and it's good that you have these 2 classes in parallel, because they really complement each other. So we are held accountable, and we should hold ourselves and our teams accountable for that. So I put in God we trust. For everything else, there is data. Okay? That is the motto for marketeers nowadays. Okay? So that's what we are going to see today. I will show you guys the dashboard, because one of the tools that you are going to use, and including for your plans, is to create the dashboard to show what you are measuring. Okay? So yeah, it's not them who tell, they just have the tools, they read. Their main role is to read, to make sure all our communications are linked to the measurement tools. That's to start, no? Then that the tools are working, then they pull the results and analyze. The main role of the communication owners is to give the analysis and say, is this working, not working? Why is not working? For example, I will show you in our dashboard, the opening rate of our email marketing has fallen from 40% 2 years ago to 27%. Why? I'm furious. But I mean, there are many macro reasons for that, but I tell the agency, guys, no, we have to find a solution. We still needed to do email marketing. It cannot be. So it's our everyday life, this, really. So just to have some context of what we measure, for what are the pieces of the brand development that we needed to measure? How does that work? Okay, so there are two pieces of it. One that we marketeers focus more, and the other one, which is the outcomes, which is the finance team will focus more. So the brand value chain you saw in class 2, in that online class, okay? So is an approach to assess the sources and the outcomes of the brand equity work, okay? So we use that to do that assessment. Mostly what marketeers does, we measure the sources, and finance measures the outcomes, and they measure how much that is impacting our stocks, for example. Yeah? So, sources. Let's take a look at the sources first. Our marketing program investment, the examples I just talked about, okay? So, when we launch a product, the product campaigns, all the communications around, all the promotions, for example, if you are in retail, at the point of sale, the trade, the trainings with the agents, the commissions, the incentives with the agents that you might have with your distributors. All these are marketing programs. Everything you do there is a source of equity, okay? And with these activities, if you are working well with them, they are going to help to form the image in the customer's brand, in the customer's mind, okay? So if from there, we start forming the customer mindset. So remember what we want in the customer mindset. We want the customer to know us. We want the customer to have a positive association. Remember when we looked into the two big elements of equity? You needed to know the brand, and you want a quality, a positive association to the brand. Those two is what generates equity, okay? So we will measure that. We have research, yeah, to measure. Do you know that brand? Have you seen the brand? When you think about chocolate, which brands do you think? That's a research which determines if people know. And what do you associate? Remember we did that? Quality, luxury, gift, expensive. Those are the associations. We are going to measure if we are getting the associations we want. So these are sources of brand equity. Okay? Then we start into the outcomes. So how the brand is performing. How do I know the brand is performing? Remember, the higher my premium price, the more I can charge, the more inelastic my demand is. So I can increase the price without changing the size of my demand tremendously. So remember I said, we know in Bupa that we can charge about 20% more. Yeah? Because I can do that because of the value of my brand. People know the brand, people associate with quality. And so this becomes the outcome of the equity I built. I can charge more. My demand is more inelastic, so I can increase more the price. Therefore, I'm more profitable than my competitors because I can charge more, much more, 20% more than my cost of production. Yeah? So I'm more profitable, hopefully I have more market share because I have more value, no? So expansion success. So that's performance, that's an outcome. Measured mostly by finance, and also obviously we measure pricing and we measure market share. And finally, the big outcome that we are looking for is the stock price. Remember the first slide I showed you in class. Why do we bother? Why are we doing and spending so much? It's because we know, remember that slide? That the top 100 brands from Interbrand consistently perform, the stock consistently perform higher than the average of the stocks. That is my ultimately outcome, okay? So we will concentrate in the measurements of the sources, okay? We are not going to very much look into this, but so you know that there is. Usually, for this area, when you wanted to really get to this point, shareholder value, market capitalization, you hire someone like Interbrand, okay, or Young and Rubicon. They have very heavy methodologies that will help the organizations to determine the value of the brand, and especially if you wanted to sell or buy a company, you needed to look in the P&L, what's the goodwill, which is the value of the brand. Normally, you hire a consultant to help you to determine that value. Okay? So today we are going to focus on these two, to measure our marketing programs and to see how they are either establishing the image I want or not in the customer mind. And so therefore we are going to look into the sources, okay? So, within the sources, we can measure the direct and the indirect. So indirect approach to measure the sources, and there is a direct that assesses the outcome, okay? So they come together. So the first, and there are long-term and short-term ways of doing that, of measuring the sources, okay? There are internal ways. You're going to do what we were just talking about. You're going to measure your programs internally. So how much everything that I'm doing, my communications, my campaigns, my products, all this is driving. So I will measure each of my activities internally, and these activities will create the identity. Remember that the identity is everything that we do. Then I'm going to look externally into the customer. And then is when it comes the research. That will measure the image. So by measuring everything we do internally, every campaign, I look into the open rate, I look in the click-through rate, or my social media, I look at the engagement. All these measurements of the activities themselves is part of I'm measuring in each program how efficient they are being. But then I needed to see if altogether they are reaching the image, they are creating the image I want. So these are, and you can do that in a short term, very tactically, and you can do that in a longer term, like I will give you examples, brand trackers. Brand trackers you do twice a year if you have money. Yeah. Sometimes you do, if you don't, every 2 years. So audits are long-term, and I brought some examples for you. And tracking is what I just said. It's what I will show you in the dashboard that you measure every single month. Like we said, our website, what's the traffic? What's the accessibility rate? Those things are short-term tracking that you needed to monitor. It's more a monitor than a measurement. No, you needed to monitor exactly what's happening with all your communications. And then we start measuring the resonance, how relevant our brand becomes for the customers. So this comes together. You can design research to measure the pyramid, okay, that we talked about. And then what I already talked about this, we will not look. Finance looks more into this. So that's the so let's start looking into potential ways, different ways to measure our program. So in part 2, you will tell me, you will put in your plan, what are the communication channels, the communication tools you are going to use to express your brand. So you will talk about, okay, we needed to make sure we have a proper website. We needed to make sure that the social media, depending on, we were talking about Mart of Miami, it needs to have a strong social media presence. So you will put in your plan exactly, there are many, which communications make the most sense for your category and to drive your position. Now, how do you measure those? There are so many ways. Usually, there are very traditional ways. Social media, you have engagement. We are going to look into it, okay? But you need it before you start. A very, very important thing you will hear me repeating many, many times. You do not define measurement in strategies, no, after you put together your communication plan. the measurement it's a strategy. It needs to be defined as part of your communication strategy. So if you're working yourself with an agency, it should always end, what are my key success factors? How do I know this communication is going to be successful? Okay, how do I know? What am I going to measure? What are the key metrics? What are the benchmarkings for these metrics, no? So, if you've been doing this for years, you will look the last 2 years, how much do I want to achieve next year? You needed to put your goal, okay? No, it's not an afterthought. It's part of your plan. So for our plans this year, I ask, okay, we have 3 columns for everything we do. What are the key metrics? What was in the past? And what's my goal? So it's not an afterthought, it's part of your initial plan, okay? Now, this is a basic, okay? Return on marketing investment. It's a basic formula that you can use for everything, and you should look, some types of activities are easier to use this formula, others not so much, okay? Why? So, look the definition, amount gained. How much income, and this you wanted to measure in dollars, okay, in money. How much income that was generated by my investment. So if I have a campaign, how much sales it generated. The amount of revenue from those sales, okay? So that comes here, amount gained. And the amount spent is easy. You normally know exactly how much you are spending on your campaign. This, guys, is quiz question. Quiz question, okay? How do we measure? Return on investment, return on market. This is for any. It's very, how much we gain minus what we spent divided by what we spent, multiplied by 100 for the percentage, okay? And I have, I put as a source in your materials for week 4, a whole bigger explanation on this, okay? Now, any question about this? I'm going to take you through one example of a real life campaign, how we go from creating the campaign to measuring the return on investment of the campaign. So I'm going to take you through a sponsorship that we did in Bupa for 4 years with PGA Latin America. Okay, remember we talked about when our brand was not so known, you wanted to partner with other brands that are aligned, they have the same values that you have. PGA has the values, it's a sport. The target group is exactly the same. No, Platinum and Centurion American Express card members is the same. Bupa target is the same PGA golf player targets. PGA Latin America is a non-for-profit organization, and it helps actually young golfers to grow in their career. So we partnered with them for 4 years in sponsorships. Very successful sponsorship. We only finished when the pandemic started, and then there were no games anymore. Okay? So I'm going to show you the full, and then we get how we are measuring.
PGA Tour Latino America is the premier platform for the highest level of competitive golf in the region. And last season, the tour added another level to the competition, the Bupa Challenge. As a global healthcare insurance company, Bupa serves over 32 million people in 190 countries. Its primary focus is on its clients, helping people live longer, healthier, and happier lives. In 2017, Bupa and PGA Tour Latino America joined forces to further spread the excitement of golf throughout Latin America.
Encontramos en el PGA de Latinoamérica un partner muy bueno que cumple un poco con los valores que tenemos como compañía Bupa y también con el propósito que tenemos de vidas más largas, sanas y felices.
We created a platform through which we promote events like golf that enables us to demonstrate these values. And we feel that golf covers all three areas of a healthier mind, a healthier body, and a healthier spirit.
Fue una excelente combinación de deporte y de principios y valores de compañía, así que estamos nuevamente encantados con el partnership.
The inaugural Bupa Challenge featured events in Guatemala, Ecuador, the Dominican Republic, and Brazil, with players battling for the chance to take home a $10,000 cash prize bonus. And on the strength of his victory at the Puerto Plata DR Open and a top 5 finish at the 64 Aberto do Brasil, the United States' TK Kelly earned the title of champion of the inaugural Bupa Challenge.
It's pretty cool what Bupa did creating this challenge, and I know all the players appreciate it. It really got guys thinking, and it got guys wanting to make sure they came and played in every event. It's always nice to have a little extra motivation on the line.
The 2018 edition of the Bupa Challenge tees off in Antigua at the Guatemala Open at La Reunion Golf Resort before landing in the Dominican Republic for the Puerto Plata DR Open, and then Ecuador for the Quito Open, before closing in Brazil at the Brazil Open. Who will walk away with the title and the $10,000 prize? Find out during the Bupa Challenge.
That was the campaign, okay? So now how did we measure it? So you can see here, okay? This is a spreadsheet, very simple, okay? How did we, remember how much we spent, the investment? How did we calculate it? Each event, so you would have the Guatemala, the Ecuador, each one in each country, okay? How much it costed just to pay for the sponsorship. In this case, this was the first year. We increased this in the fourth year. We increased the number of events and we reached 300. I'm giving you just an old example, no, because I cannot share the exact date and data, but we got to 300, I think 380,000 at the last year because we include Mexico as well. So each event is one of that you heard in the video. Guatemala, Ecuador, DR, later Brazil, 2 in Brazil we had, okay? And then, so how much we paid for each event for the sponsorship. In this case, we just split equally because we didn't pay by event. We had a package deal negotiated with PGA. I mean, we could have split this more properly by how big the country is. So we could have done that probably to be more correct. So this was the biggest investment, which is how much I was paying for the sponsorship. Then, well, you cannot just pay for the sponsorship. You needed to do the amplification. If you are there, you needed to amplify. You need to make sure that all the target group knows that you're there. So there's a cost, no? Promotions, you put together a booth, a little place branded, no? Where with food, where you receive the players. We did this, one of our target groups, this I will show you later, was especially interesting. It was a good deal because we target our agents and the customer. Because we had, as part of the activity, we negotiate with the PGA that there was one day that our agents could come and play with the golfers. And they loved it because it's the type of things money can buy, no? You can only do that through Bupa because we have contact with the players. So the agents were fascinated of the opportunity to play with these guys, these famous guys. So that was a big engagement for us with our agents. And then we had obviously the big backing on all the communication from PGA. Yeah. But to do that, we had to invest in promotion. Then a core of any sponsorship, you need PR. So what will really drive your return is to make sure that everything that you are doing has coverage. Okay? That you capture that, and that's why you do with a strong brand, because they already have, you want the journalists to think that this is not news. It needs to be news for you to be in the press. So you need an agency. You hire an agency, a PR agency, that does your press pack, telling what we are doing. So there is the cost of the PR agency here. And then the social media. You needed to be on top and telling what's happening across social media. So you have a total value here of how much did I invest. Okay, this was the first year, these numbers. We grew tremendously on this. So that is one part of the formula. Remember, amount spent, amount gained minus amount spent divided by the amount spent. Here it is. Okay. Now, PR value. How do I calculate my return here, the return on investment, based on PR value? Who can tell me what PR value is? What is anybody here in the industry of public relations? Okay, this is important, guys. Marketeers, you needed to know this, okay? PR value. So you know, it's the value when you buy a space in a magazine or on TV or on media, no? You're buying that. It's advertising. When you get that space through an article, you're not paying anything for that space, okay? But there is a value for that space if you were to buy that space. You gain that space because of all the activities you did, and the media considers that there is interest to publish. So your PR value, the way you measure is how much would have cost that space if I had to buy it. So that's the PR value. Now, you will see if you go deep on this, most companies say because PR has more value than advertising because it's not you talking about yourself, okay? So some people transfer this PR value, they take the value of how much it would be if I bought that space and they multiply by 3, okay? That is the kind of the standard of the industry. I never did this because my boss never believed. You know, so I was very, very conservative. I did one by one. If we had bought that space, that's how much money we would have spent. As we didn't, I gained. This is the amount of money we gained. So we had our brand in all these spaces, but we didn't have to pay. So that is my formula to calculate, you see? The 14% return on investment. We finished this in the 4th year, I think we were above 50%. Because that's another thing about sponsorship. It's never 1 year. To be successful, you have to be consistent. Every year people start waiting for what you are doing, okay? So this is a spreadsheet, you can go there and you see how the calculation goes. And you can see here, some markets are negative, okay? Because, for example, Brazil, the cost of the media is extremely high. So any space we get in the media in Brazil, it's extremely expensive, okay? So my PR value is tremendous for me. In places like Guatemala, Bolivia, yeah, it's very small. The value, so I spend the same practically across all markets, you know. But although I probably should distribute, this is obviously there is more value, much more reach in Brazil, no. So we probably should distribute this better. And if we multiply this like the industry does by 3, our return on investment would be off the charts, but we never did. So in the first year, some markets were negative, but the other markets were super positive. The idea is that it has to be the whole, because we are in the region, no? So you want the brand to grow in the region. So the return on investment was 14%. How did I calculate that? Amount gain, 404, minus the amount spent divided by the amount spent times 100. That formula. Okay? And you have this in your, you can go and look at the calculations, okay, for each of those. So these essentially how we measured every year the sponsorship. Here you see some other ones that are not related, which were like product launches. More that we do a lot of PR for product launches as well. Okay. So then here I'm going to show you. Then we put on the third year of PGA, we got an award for the whole sponsorship, a BUPA Global Award. So here you can see here we telling us the details, no? What is the target group? What was the key, the objectives, no? That we wanted. We need a communication solution to be able to address the needs across targets. So when you have not much money, you want to make the most. So you want it with one activity, touch both targets. Okay? So we explain here what I already explained to you. What was the scope? What were the criteria when we started choosing? How did we choose the partners? No? Healthy living, high media target relevance, enables the agent's activation. So we had some pretty key criteria. Okay? So this is a summary of when we presented to get the award. So in here we put the results, the media space, how much media we got. This is where we invest the money. Imagine we put money to put together these booths as part of the investment. At the end, in the last 2 years, we did the press it was our spaces were so good that the whole PGA press conferences, they did the press conferences inside of BUPA's booth. That was awesome because obviously we got much more space in the media than if it was just us. So you can see here the importance of the coverage, the channels. And there's a lot about, you choose the partner because of that. Because you need a partner. When your brand is not top of mind, like BUPA is not top of mind, you want a brand that is, because you piggyback on that. Okay? And here you can see the results. What were the brand metrics before we started with the campaign? The first year of the campaign, the second year of the campaign, mentions engagement and reach, how we measured it. Efficiency, the PR value that I see how it increased. Yeah, here it should be 14% to 92%. And then our competitive position in this share of topic, that is TalkWalker. I will show you the tool that we used to show this. When this tool measures all the conversations that are going on online, and we put in the tool BUPA and all our competitors. These are our competitors. And it measures at the time of the event the conversations, who had more conversations going on. So top share of topics we had pretty high. So this is the measurement, you see, for us to be able to get the award as well. And essential, this is essential. Every end of the year, I presented this to my boss so that he authorizes us to invest another $350,000 the next year. Yeah, here another way we show, because then this is the tool. This comes from TalkWalker, which is a software that measures all that I'm talking about in terms of reach, engagement, yeah? It does this, okay? So see how interesting. Because then the sales guys come and say, why are we spending $380,000 to do something regional? I can spend, they say exactly that. I can spend 10 times less than this and do my own thing here with the guy that I know. He's, you know, the guy from the golf country club. He's my pal. I can do for $3,000. That's what happens, okay? So you have to prove that there is value in doing something. Number one, with a brand that is high quality, that has reach across, and to do it regionally. And this is our proof, okay? This is Talkwalker. The collateral benefit that showcases value of a regional sponsorship is the increase in badminton in countries where there was no event. Look, but this is because of PGA, okay? So look at this. This is the amount of mention in Colombia. We did nothing in Colombia, nothing.
That's why I was like, why didn't he go to Colombia? You know, like.
We did nothing in Colombia. Look, here was the mention when we launch a product. We measure here, we launch a product. There was an event in Colombia. Look what happens in the conversations, the mentions of the Bupa brand when we do it, the Bupa Challenge in Guatemala. It spikes up. Just because it was in Guatemala. This is our reference. This is the amount of conversation it happens when you do a big event, a big event in specific in the country. Here we spend zero in the country. We got this. Look when we did the Bupa Challenge, the PGA in Ecuador, DR, and Mexico. Look how much it grows in Colombia. Because they are watching. The target group is so right. The segmentation is so correct that no matter where you are in Latin America, they are watching. So this money, I paid nothing for this. So with this, and then here you can see this Talkwalker as well, the software that tells me, I don't know, the mentions, the reach, and how much has grown since the last time. So essentially, Colombian golfers followed our activities around the region. Yeah, this holds for me the investment across the region. And here shows we do the research because we had two target group, no? The customers, but also the agents. So we did our survey. We needed to prove that the agents were happy. And they wanted us to continue to do it. So we did a survey. Would you like to return? These are some of the agents, no? In one of the events. And they confirmed that these events strengthen the relationship with Bupa. So 76.9, extremely satisfied, very satisfied with the event. We show that as well. That's a online research with the brokers. Okay, so this is a report on the event. This is like a report. This is a report like Hill and Knowlton. At the time, it was our PR agency. So they would give us the type of how many mentions our activities had. So when you look, what are the type of words? You know word cloud, no? You know this. What is Bupa associated with in the press? This is the type of report you want, no? From in Latin America, at the time, this is specific. This is more from Hill and Knowlton. Talkwalker, okay? This is the software. There are many softwares that do this, that crawl the digital space, and you program it to put which brands you want to follow in which geography, okay? So this is not related to PGA. No, this is something we do every month. We check every month to see what's going on with our brand. So how much conversation there is online for our brand. So here you see BGLA is Bupa Latin America. and these are our competitors, Best Doctors, Pali, Vumi. So it shows us that we are holding more conversations, okay, here, throughout the time. Okay. So here you can see in terms of the engagement, reach, and results. So whether, for example, whether you see how we have much more engagement, although Palik has a bigger reach. Because they, for example, they use Twitter. We don't use Twitter in Bupa. So our competitors in general have much more reach, but what you want is relevant conversations. Because what you want is engagement. Yeah? So you can see here that difference is because of that. Yeah? So Top Walker shows us that. Where is the conversation coming from? Blogs. You see, Twitter is always the largest. Okay? And we don't have Twitter because Twitter, you have to be so careful. Because people use Twitter as customer service channel. So unless you have a team to answer Twitter and be able to serve the customer through Twitter, don't even go there. Because it's dangerous, bad press. No, you needed to have hands to control Twitter. Again, the same thing. You see how Twitter it comes. Here, to share, the same information from each of our. It shows also each channel. It shows the communication strategy of your customers. When you have something like this, you see not only yours, but you see what your customers are doing. So this tool is fundamental. Some type of tool like this, for you to manage a business, is fundamental. And we pay $25,000 a year for that. Okay? This is, we measure the sentiment, no? If it's neutral, positive, or negative. So we look at the conversations and if there are problems with the conversations, no, the negative. So let's see, here's our competitors. This is us. A lot of neutral, just Best Doctors was doing a good job, you can see here. This is old, I cannot share up to date, but it's more for you to see the tools that we use. So usually, and then you can click on this, and you can see what was the conversation that generated the negative. The tool takes you to the posts that generates the conversation. Okay. The tone, blah, blah. Here you can see the posts. What are the top influences for us? Here you can see there is an agent that has an Instagram channel and talks a lot about Bupa. He is our top influencer. And for our competitors as well. So it's a very powerful information for our sales team as well. No? And here you actually can see the conversations. The posts. The tool does all that for you, and where the conversations are taking place. Okay. So this is a tool. This is something I wanted to show you guys. That's measurement. So let's go back. Let's go back. So this is all to show measurement of an example. Okay, a full from campaign measurement. Reporting, how you report it, which tools we use to measure. So this is one activity. You needed to do this kind of thing for all your activities. Okay. Another important thing you needed to look into. Remember, we talk a lot about the importance of creating your brand elements, your brand guidelines, your tone of voice. Okay. So. With all these activities that we do today, so many channels, one of the biggest challenges for marketing managers is to make sure it's aligned. All your different channels and all your different messages look the same and have the same tone of voice. Because many times, usually it's not the same agency that's doing it, and even if the same agent, it doesn't happen. So you needed to have some kind of discipline, which we call brand inventory, internal, to monitor, and you do once a year if you have money, if you have people, or every 2 years, no? And I will show you what is in a brand inventory, where you go through all your communications, all your emails, your websites, every touch point the customer has, and you check against your brand guidelines, and you check against your tone of voice, okay? Provide a current and comprehensive profile on how all the products and services are marketed and branded, visual and written formats. So let me show you an example. And what we are looking for is consistency. So the customers will see you in different touch points, and they needed to know it's you. Okay? It seems obvious, far from it. Far from it. This we did a long time ago. This is a brand audit. Okay? And we did with Tanya, the lady that's coming, when she was in Ogilvy. It costed us, I remember, $20,000. This is what they do. Okay? They will go through all your activity, to see. So for example, here they looked at the website, how the website is showing in desktop, in mobile. Yeah? How we are using the whole copy, if it's consistent. So here, one of our websites is the website for the agents, Bopa ESMAS. So they have our guidelines, and they go through all our materials to see what's wrong against the guidelines and against consistency. So then they point out for us what is not working. Okay, so see, debit scroll bar, CTA is not visible. It's taking too long to upload. Yeah, and we have an objective of uploading. Okay, of how quick. What is happening with this message here is not. There is a whole bunch of things that are not right with the message. Gênero incorreto. So they went page by page of one website. Imagine that we did this. This document has, I think, 298 pages. It costed $20,000. And it went through every single piece of communication we had. And it pointed out all the issues, even like brand. Look, this is very good. So you see the summary, the learnings, okay? Main sessions for 1, 2. So they go the homepage, each of the areas of the tool, where it was wrong according to the guidelines, what happened with the content, the UX, the problem with the UX. Look at this, I wanted to kill the thing. How can you possibly get wrong the logo in every single page? The logo of the company. Imagine that they did this for everything. Emails, let me find.
The mobile site also?
The mobile, whether there are right conversion to the mobile. Mexico, you see Facebook, our social media, they did what was not right. And then digital guidelines, no? This was an attachment to show what they based themselves into. So this is an audit, guys. I'm not going to go into, we don't have the time. But it's in your materials if you wanted to take a look in more details. And I wanted to show that, yes, this needs to be, where is it? Here, yes. So this is a brand audit. that you needed to do in your materials every now and then, to check if there is consistency across, because it's very easy to lose that consistency. For me, is one of the hardest things to do in the organization. And that, because that's what drives brand identity, no? So if you have inconsistency on how the customer sees your brand, your communications in the different touch points, that impacts brand identity. Okay? We still have major discussions about the use if we're talking to or stay, no? The guideline says we should be down to earth. Remember, Alex, down to earth, we talk to. But then you go to our medical team and they say, no, but this customer is too important. We cannot say to, it has to be you stay. So.
Well, maybe that level of customer in those countries.
Yeah, it's
used,
cultural. So then you needed to do an exception. We do an exception. And you needed to listen to people that are dealing with the customer as well. No. And remember, these guidelines come from UK. Okay? Come from it's Bupa globally. No? Remember what the example of American Express luxury? In Russia, it's yachts and champagne. In UK, is freedom. Luxury is freedom and being able to do what you do with what you want and travel to off the beaten path place. So the interpretation is different. So the first thing that should come is the culture, no? The local culture. Brand inventory and customer mindset. This I make sure that all my touch points are consistent. Yeah. Now I needed to see if the way the customer is absorbing all the information is creating the brand image that I want. Okay? So research, conduct qualitative and quantitative research to understand if all these activities we've been doing, if the PGA, when the customer is watching Bupa in the PGA, what is the image that they have? We assume that because it's PGA, because it's very high, good taste, it's very premium, it's helping us to maintain the premium image of the brand. It might not be. It might be that the customer is interpreting this in a completely different way. Yeah? So I need to find out how is my brand behaving. And usually you don't do that because this is expensive. Yeah? And you can do online, but customers don't answer anymore. We do NPS. We are doing through Net Promoter Score nowadays, which is becoming harder and harder and harder to get customers to answer. I think NPS is going to transform because it will get to a point people is not going to answer anymore those. Would you recommend anymore? But it's a fundamental metric. Okay. This is another, so in terms of how you measure the customer mindset, what is it that you measure? There are so many things we want to measure. Think about the funnel, no? The different moments. Remember the communication funnel? So, awareness. So here are some examples. How you measure brand awareness. Unaided awareness. So unaided, you give the category, and they say what's the top of mind. What are the brands in the category? Aided, where you put for them, and then they see, I know what this brand is. Okay. So this is the type of activities. Favorability. Do you buy this brand? No. Sentiment. What do you think about this brand? You measure within this area of the funnel. Then the loyalty behaviors. How often have you bought this brand? How often do you buy this brand? Do you intend to buy it again? In advocacy, would you recommend this? NPS, Net Promoter Score, is essentially an advocacy Net Promoter Score here, willingness to recommend, reviews, etc. So these are examples, specific, because when you study research, it's generic research. Here I'm giving you examples of what type of research you will do specifically for branding, okay? At each stage of the funnel. And you can do that. Remember quali and quanti? What's the difference? A qualitative research, you go deep, no? You get trends, how the customer feels about the brand or the product.
Or what they associate it with.
What they associate with. Quantitative, you measure that. So quantitative, you take those answers from the qualitative and then you transform into a measurement, and you needed to have a volume of that is valid. That there's a name for it, I forgot. Quantitative valid sample. A sample you cannot do with quantitative, needs to have at least 3, depending on your universe. There's a percentage, and the research company will tell you what is a valuable sample. No, the sample that is representative, the number of people that you need to be truly representative of your universe. No. So these are tools that we use to measure the customer mindset. How all the programs that you did are impacting your brand in the customer's mind. So in the beginning of the class, we talk about how you measure the programs themselves, how you make sure that your brand, you do the audit to make sure your brand is consistent. And now we are looking into, okay, we did all that, we measured all that, we think we were successful because the engagement was high, we reached a lot of people, the return on investment was high. So the specific measurements of the activities were high. Now, could it be that I'm doing all this and I'm creating a completely different image in the customer's mind? Yes, it could. Yeah, so you need to check what all this is doing in the customer's mind. Okay, so that's what we are doing here. No, Stacy? You seem, yeah? Short-term tracking, we talked about it. No, and these guys, there is, for your part 2, I'm going to ask you exactly this. What are you measuring? Okay? Collect information from consumers on a routine basis. That's an NPS. NPS you do every month. That's short-term tracking. And you are collecting every month whether they would, every single transaction that they have, a claim. Every time they have a claim, I ask them, how was your experience? Would you recommend us to a friend? That's tracking. Consumers on a routine basis regarding performance of a key dimensions. The best example is NPS. But everything we do, when we measure opening rate of our emails, so it's not the customer mindset, you are measuring before, that's also tracking, no? Every single post you do in the social media, you are measuring, that's tracking. So when you track, there are some key considerations, basic things that you needed to take in consideration, okay? And this, for your plan, you're going to set up a number of activities. We'll have a number of activities that you are going to propose to promote your brand, yeah? So I'm going to ask you to say how you are going to measure these activities. So you're going to have to list. So if you say there that you're creating social media channels, new social media channels, or that you needed to improve their social media channels, Marta of Miami, they need to improve the social media channels. You will have to tell me, okay, these are the measures today, these are the key metrics I'm going to use, and where I want to get these metrics. So for every single activity, I want you to say what are the metrics and how much you want to achieve with that, okay? So you needed to determine, that's what I'm saying. What to track, no? Benchmarks are critical in tracking studies. So that is, you needed to know what the base is. No, like when we say, for example, what is a reasonable opening rate for an email? Well, it depends, no? If you are talking about prospects, people that are not engaged with you. So I was talking with Frank, our digital acquisition guy. And he's saying, wow, 17% is fantastic. So, oh. Yeah, but it's prospects, no? That's a very good. If we reach, he told me if we reach 8% is fantastic. Now, when we are talking about email marketing to your customer base, the people that should be engaged with you, yeah, we used to have 40% opening rate. So that is our benchmark is what we used to have. Pandemia comes, customers get overloaded by emails. Two years later, 27%. I'm not happy with 27% because they should be engaged. Agents cannot have. Agents need to be at least 40% because they are our direct relationship. So that's what I'm talking about benchmarking. You needed to know based on what that you are setting up your objective. Always include one competitor. That you saw how we track. We always include, okay, so based on what? Compared to whom? As much as you can. Sometimes, like I don't have the opening rate of my competitors' email. But whenever you can, try to include your competitors. That's what I talked about, yeah? So when you are setting up a new program, a new product, or you are revamping your product set, please measure before and after. Don't remember to do it, think about measurement not as an afterthought, but as part of your plan. So always think about measuring before and after. Okay? How to track? So which tools are you going to use? No? So are you going to get a software? Are you going to measure how often? How often? Are you going to measure before, during, and after? Okay? So what to track, how to track, and how are you going to interpret it? So you need someone to help you see, okay, so what does it mean that my opening rate went from 40 to 27? So the agency said, oh, it's macroeconomics. The customers are tired. That's their constant explanation. No. There must be. Well, look at your title. It's too generic. Nobody's going to open an email with a generic title like that. No. So what are the best practices? Are we following? So you needed to be able to interpret. So when you put your tracking plan, you needed to say what you're going to track, how, and how you're going to interpret. Okay? To finish, so here. So to implement what we call, this is a question in the quiz as well, a brand equity management system. Okay? So tracking is a core piece of the brand management system. The first thing is a scorecard. All that we talked here needs to be summarized into a leadership scorecard that you will look at once a month, depending the short terms tracking, you will look once a month, and then you have quarterly things you track quarterly, and things you track once a year at the end of the year. But you have to have scorecards. I will show you an example. The brand charter, that's what you are creating right now. Okay, the brand charter is the plan, the brand plan that you guys are creating. So you have the brand plan, you have the scorecard, and then you are clear about who owns what. Who owns the brand? Yeah, who are the brand ambassadors? In the marketing team, in the legal team. So responsibilities are assigned responsibility. Obviously, you have very small companies, okay? So in the small companies, the responsible for the brand is the owner, okay? Most of the time. But the important thing is it needs to be assigned. Who will look into these metrics? Someone needs to be responsible for looking at these metrics. So scorecard, the plan, and the responsibilities, okay? So let me just very quickly show you examples. Okay, this is our scorecard. This is this is what we do. Obviously, this is Luis' area. He has to explain every month what was the KPI of our main website. Last year, the traffic, what was the traffic? He did well. The KPI was 14 million in traffic. We closed the year in 17. This is very up to date. And this was the previous year, okay? So now we will start 2022 with a new KPI. Okay? So we look at this dashboard, we have a meeting every month. I had the agency built this in Power BI. Okay, so you have a software. Microsoft Power BI, but you have Portfolio, Google has this, it's a tool to build dashboards. That's not important. We use now Power BI because the company uses it for everything. But the important thing is define, this is the important thing. What are you going to measure? Okay, and I'm going to ask you to create something like this, not in the system, just illustrative. Okay, illustrative, but the important thing for me is that you say, okay, what am I going to measure? Brand health, we measure brand health, and we have a few questions that comes from NPS. Social media, okay? So, followers, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Followers, engagement, and reach. Share of voice, share of engagement. All this comes from the channels directly into the dashboard. Does it? Yeah?
Yes. It's connected from, many of those things are connected directly from Google Analytics.
From Google.
And you can do that.
So, and this comes from TalkWalker, this share of voice and share of engagement. So you can see here for each of our social media channels, we have the KPI. We have how much we reach in 2021. KPI we established in the beginning of the year. And then what was the year before? It seems so good to be true.
So the KPI, can we just use the previous year's number as a benchmark? Like for 2022, it could be the 7 million?
I wouldn't do that. You want to better. You don't want ever. Why am I paying all these people? To do the same thing in the year? No, you wanted to have to grow. Always grow.
So in that case, if you grew 10% from last year to this year, so next year should be 11%?
Something like that. That is a hard thing. That is the hard thing. That is the hard thing. How do you know where you wanted to get, you know? Maybe you could use how much do I want to grow my base, my customer base, look at the AOP of your company, and then have something related to that. You need some criteria, some logic criteria here. Yeah, but not the same. We are having this debate. The UK, the Bupa wants to have the same NPS for the whole organization that we had this year. I escalated. I said, are you nuts? We needed to deliver 250 improvement in customer experience, and you wanted to give the customer service NPS the same as last year. That makes no sense. Push back. No. No. So that is a debate happening right now. Yeah. Email engage. See what I'm saying? Oh my God, it was 40%. We are here. Opening rate, click-through rate for customers, agents, and the internal communication. And then we have the loyalty program. So what we need here is for you to establish what you wanted to measure, depending on the activities you will fix for your plan. So this is a dashboard, guys. And yeah. So that's it for this part. There is one slide in your part 2 that asks for this piece, okay? For the brand equity responsibilities, okay? This means you just need to say who owns brand, who should be taking care of all related to brand. Normally, in a larger company, you will have something like this, okay, that I wanted to share with you. Something like this, okay? So you have all in a multinational that has people all over the world. You see UK, international, Australia, Europe and Latin America, you see? You will have the people here. Who are the key brand owners this is for the legal team, because you usually have people responsible for the brand in marketing, and then you have in legal those guys who do the trademark, okay? So those people needed you needed to say you as a marketeer you need at least to have a friend lawyer that will help with your branding, no? To trademark that. And you will have something like this in marketing, where you have the chief brand officer in the organization globally, and then you have by the region. You can see here, we were here, Alexei was here, this is old one, okay, for our region. But this is all people responsible for branding in the whole world for Bupa. So that needs to be identified, because usually you have a brand protection policy. And these people are responsible, they answer for the brand protection if something goes wrong with the brand. Okay, I just wanted to show you that. So chapter 9 goes very specifically on how to measure, how to capture in the second bit, the blue bit, the brand image. Everything we talked more or less now was to measure the programs you do to create your brand identity. Now is how you capture your customer mindset. So I'm not going into too much details because this is essentially research. Okay, the basics of the basics is research, and you had a research class for this. But what I wanted to show here is what are the types of research you would do specifically to measure brand on the customer mindset. Okay, very quick. So that's we already talked about this, the QALY, which measures a trend, measures going depth of how people are feeling, but you don't know exactly how many. The types of qualitative research, okay? Interviews deep in depth. We still do, I will tell you, it's expensive, but we still do a lot of in-depth research. For example, we just did with customers that left. What would they have done? What should we have done for them to stay? What could we have done for them to stay? We did. And nowadays you can do a little bit cheaper this because you can do surveys, but interviews are more effective for in-depth. Phone interviews are more effective for in-depth research. We will look into these other examples. Neuroscience, you use the most common qualitative is focus groups. Okay, most common. So, important tool for you, quantitative. Now, here is where you determine, here is when you are creating a plan and you needed to justify the plan. No? How many people think this way? So, let's suppose you remember the example of Tropicana, that they destroyed, lost $60 million because they changed the packaging. So that is the type of research we're going to do when you are thinking of changing something that important in your brand, that is so connected to your brand, or you are changing the product. I know they did it, and so research has some limitations, no? I know when I read the case study, the new marketing manager said they did, and the research was positive, yeah, which is surprising. So it happens, but this is the type of research you wanted to have enough customer base, no, statistically valid samples to go to your leadership and say, I did the research, this is the result, and this is the direction we should go. Okay? So normally you are launching a new product, you will do you do a qualitative, where you go focus groups. We do that. We do that all the time with new products. You go to your agents, for example. What we do mostly is with our agents. And when it's very new, the product, like we have some going, then we do with the customers. And we go to qualitative, we have a focus group with the target group, and we capture, what do you feel about this product? Would you buy? Is this part of your pain points? Does this solve your pain points? What are your pain points? And then based on that, we go deeper and we do a quantitative against all the elements that we learned from the qualitative. So you usually do both. Qualitative to get what to test, and then the quantitative to make sure you have a response that's statistically valid, because that will determine your investment. Should we do such a big investment or not? So Tropicana, that change of, that is something they should have done. I think they did, and it still went wrong. So Steve Jobs, I think, famously said that he never did research. He knew, because research will tell what the customer has in their mind. And if you truly wanted to innovate, the customer doesn't know. But who can, you have to be a visionary, no? Not everybody's Steve Jobs. Some of us are mortals and we needed to do research. But I agree with him. I agree, because research is limited. Yeah, because it can only tell you the perception, what the customer thinks he knows. Yeah, and then it's where neuromarketing comes in.
So he knows what people want without them knowing.
Yeah, I think he is a visionary, and he practically he knows the need. Actually, he's a type of, he creates the need. Yeah, he goes deep into how something works so well. It's the interface, for Apple interface. The core of Steve Jobs was the interface, no? That make it so easy for everybody. And he created a need that didn't exist. So those are the visionaries. But you don't have those easy, no? So most people do research. But he's right, I think. When you ask, you just get a limited, the customer has a limited understanding of what could be, no? You cannot innovate. We have this is very interesting. When we were doing a new product for Mexico, because of this, I just said, there is a company, Sense, I forgot their name, very good company, in the UK, that they hire people that are in the extremes of your target group. So not your day-to-day target group, they hire like, just as an example, okay, I love that study case, that a company that makes this, not Band-Aid, but things, when you form those things in your foot and then it hurts, and you put a type of a Band-Aid. A company that manufactures those wanted to do something better. So they asked for a research, and they hired these guys. Sense, they are called Sense. So the type of research they do, they have a network of very, so because you have a curve of people that use your product in a normal way, and that you have those early adopters and heavy users. So for this thing, they wanted to ask questions to dominatrix, to people, yeah, because they are on high heels all the time. And they are active on high heels I'm not joking, guys. This is in a book. It's in a book. I'm not joking. We hired them. Because I read that and I said, this is fantastic. This is what a good idea. You go to those people that are heavy users or early adopters. Because if you are not the visionary, these people will be. These are the heavy users customer. So they asked the dominatrix, what would be an efficient type of Band-Aid for the things that they get on? And they explained. They produced the bloody thing. It was major success.
Leather?
No, I don't remember. There is a different, some kind of padding on that was different. So, and there's a book that with many case studies on this. I will send you the book. The author is a journalist, actually. Fantastic. But I think that's why the normal research will give you just some, no? But not really innovation. I don't think it comes from research, personally. But you do need to check what is the image what the activities that you are doing. You need to check what is doing to your customer's mind. That's why in our dashboard we have the brand health item, no? Where we ask them, how do you feel? Do you feel we are here for you? Key questions to the customer. So types of qualitative for branding. Things that type of research. Free association, no? So what does the Rolex name means to you? So you just give the brand. Remember I asked that for chocolate. Godiva, no? What does that mean? What brings that to your mind? No? What comes to mind when you think of Rolex? This is a free association question that captures associations. What is the customer? Am I being successful to make sure that the customer is associating Godiva with quality, with luxury, with gift? No? The other one, projective technology. This is very used, and it's fun to do it. Usually you do with agencies. If your brand were an animal, no? If your brand were a car, what type of car, what type of animal would the brand be? Because through that you can see if it's a wolf, no? The qualities of wolf. What are the qualities of the wolf? No? What are those qualities that are transferring to the brand? So, if you were an animal, if you were a car, diagnostic tools to uncover the true opinions and feelings of customers. Because instead of asking the question directly, when you ask through association, you go deeper into the feelings. No? So that is a good technique. Personality. If you were a person, yeah? Usually the agencies do that. Actually, we asked in part 1, your personas, the brand personas. I hope you put in your plan the brand personas. That's exactly it. Yeah, the idea of how, that's what I'm trying to get. Know how the customer perceives the brand. What are the personas? This, I only did this once in my whole career, and it was with American Express because it's super expensive, but it's so much fun. What they do is they follow the customer all day long for a week, no? And they capture all the moments that the customer uses your product. So the customer wakes up, goes to the Starbucks, use your credit card, use the American Express. Then, so we follow the customer all the way until the customer goes to bed for a week. And then they do a mapping of experience, how the customer is experiencing your product. That's a fantastic. It's great to present, no, but it's super expensive, very difficult to do with products that are too upmarket because of the profile of the customer. So these are examples of qualitative. Okay, there is a technique that is a bit controversial, but certainly overcomes what we just discussed, that you capture. And when you ask the customer says what is in not really the deep feelings that sometimes the customer doesn't even know. It just answers what he thinks he needs to answer. But neuromarketing it's a research technique that goes directly to the brain. It knows for a certain type of product, well, even experiential marketing, when you go to a coffee shop, you have the smell of coffee. No, this is appealing to senses that are not directly in the first part of your brain. No, but this, I mean, you can go really crazy with. So neuromarketing studies show how the brain it goes direct to your brain, not to your waking senses, and how the brain responded to the marketing stimulus. What stimulus drive the customer to respond the way you want the customer to respond? And they measure this with MRI, actually. That's why it's very expensive. I mean, there are nowadays much cheaper ways to do this, but originally is with MRI, because you scan the brain, you provide the stimulus to the customer, and you put those things, yeah, and they measure the reaction on the brain. I will show you here how they do. Measure reactions to brand choices and advertisement. But let me show you the Harry Potter. You will see. This is the Harry Potter producers testing different scenes of the movie and the responses of the different scenes, the association they have in the brain of the research group, the people that researched. So let me put in here. And you will see, it will show you the different areas of the brain person. So what they want is to do relevance. They want to create images that drive personal relevance, because you can connect with the movie personally. That's what they are looking for. So this is the most sophisticated option. No, but imagine that. I can imagine that to choose different celebrities or actors for films, they must do something like this in different scenes. They must test, because it's so much money. It always depends on how much money you are investing to how sophisticated you want to go with the research. No? Here is just a much more simple example. The aspects of the sensorial, how they change the packaging of the Campbell soup to appeal not to the direct senses, but to the deeper senses. And here I think the manager of the Campbell soup, he explains what they did. This is controversial, no? Because you go deep. The customer won't know you are influencing. So you need to be I particularly think you need to be very careful with this. That one thing is to be very obvious how you are influencing the customer to buy. Another thing is when you have this deep information and you are influencing without the knowledge of the customer, because that's what you're doing. So when we think about the power, remember I said think about the power of the marketeer. Think about the amount of money. Camp, obviously, what they are doing doesn't seem. But you could use this in very nasty ways to influence, no? In other areas, okay? So very important to be aware of the power of a marketeer when you have the money. The customer needs to always come first in terms of respect, integrity, etc. Ethical. It needs to be always. So that is another, but that is a powerful tool to research the associations of your brand, as you can imagine. Some quantitative methods, awareness, we talked about, actually the most common. How familiar are you with a certain brand? You see, can you see the difference? Here, you are coming direct to the customer with the question. So there's a whole bunch of bias that will come that you will not capture on their answer. To what extent would you consider purchasing? So you might catch the customer in a bad moment and say, never again. In 2 weeks, they go and buy Amazon. So I did that with Uber. When there was the scandal, I took Uber out of my phone. 2 months later, I had to put up that again because it's so practical. If they had caught me at that moment in the research, yeah, you don't measure exactly. So in the next 6 months, how likely have you purchased your brand in the past month? That's the type of quantitative research questions, okay? You see this image, measures the low-level quantitative research approach. This is the conjoint analysis. This is a powerful research. Very expensive, but it captures, let me show, it's a bit of the competitive map that I put, but very sophisticated. So this, conjoint analysis. So on the car industry, yeah? So they have, and they do this with infinite number of choice drivers. In this case, it's price and quality. And they ask a very large sample of customers, a very statistically valid customers, and they ask tons of different drivers against all the brands. And then they take all the answers of many different drivers that they discovered those drivers to the qualitative, and they put in a system that they call conjoint analysis, and they come up with these graphs where each brand is sitting against those specific decision drivers. And this helps tremendously companies to define where there is a gap. Which driver might not is not satisfied? No, obviously low quality. Look here, high quality, low price doesn't exist. No, but maybe something better, something around here. So this is conjoint analysis. Very good piece of research that helps us to launch products and look where your brand sits against different parameters of choice. Brand response. This is the Net Promoter Score. This is the most common nowadays. Everybody does a Net Promoter Score, no? The likelihood right after a transaction, your bank does. Do you guys still answer this? Let me get a sample here. Do you still answer? Right after you execute a transaction, it comes an email or it comes an SMS. Does anybody answer?
Sometimes.
You sometimes?
Only if the experience is like negative or bad.
You see?
Like,
there is a bias
Not for
for
banks.
the detractors.
well, for me, it's only if the experience was really, really good. Yes. 'Cause
Either
then-
really, really good or really, really
If it
bad.
was really, really good, then I want to give that person, you
Yeah.
know, so that they can get extra points because they did really well. So I would take the time to do it if it was really, really good.
So it's the extremes.
kind of
And
been more.
I would also say convenience.
Sorry?
I would say convenience as well because, for example, on Uber Eats, like right after when you purchase or receive your order, you can like rate the experience. But I'm not going to go out of my way and look at the receipt, go on the website, do this.
Right.
It has to be
Survey,
really
yeah,
easy.
yeah,
Just
yeah.
click here.
Yeah.
Some surveys are way too long, and then I don't necessarily do them every time I'm offered a survey. Like I don't, if a bank tells me, I'm probably not going to.
Not
but
going to.
if I want to support like another type of business or something that I interact with a lot, or a small business that I feel, you know, I want to support, then sure.
I've also been like more conscious about being in the program of these surveys, especially from our
When
our
you
last
are a
class.
marketeer, you know,
Yeah.
you look at it in a different
So
way.
when I see it, I'm like, I know that obviously somebody, you know, was behind this and you know wants that information. So I've been much more conscious these past couple of months
in
when
responding,
I received that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it will get to a point we need to change the way we collect that experience information because people will stop to answer. I was at Ceviche 105 another day, and they are doing a very interesting way. The waiter, at the end of the service, the waiter comes with the phone and say, please. They are very nice people in general, no? They treat you nice. So he comes to you at the table at the end of the experience and he gives you the phone. Could you rate us? Could you provide us the rating? How are you going to say no? No? So that I found that quite interesting. I was thinking, how can we translate for us this to get more people to respond?
Also for me, like I order a lot of Amazon, right? So if I'm ordering toothpicks, I'm not going to give them a reply on the toothpicks, you know. But I get 10 emails a day. How was your experience with
I
this? How was your
know,
experience with
I
that?
know.
And there's just no way to answer all of the emails.
Yeah, I never answered the Amazon either. You feel a little bit sorry, no?
Yeah.
Because especially when it's a small company, you would like to support because usually it's a good experience. I mean, but what Adriana said is one thing we take in consideration in ours, because the detractors are much more likely to answer than the promoters, unless they are absolutely delighted with the experience. Then we make testimonials out of it. But it's rarer.
So it's
you know?
extremes. It's the extremes that answer.
The extremes answer still. And depend, obviously, Amazon not so much, but an experience with health, probably more likely. You will not answer the day-to-day of your bank, but a claim experience you probably would. So it depends how much it takes, know the relevance for you. So that is one of the key ways, simple ways to measure what the brand is. This is a branding, you know, response. Brand relationship. You wanted to measure how often they buy. If when they are buying batteries, do they always buy the same brand? Or it doesn't matter the brand, it's just the category. That's another type of research you do. Okay? So we looked into the types of qualitative research you would do for the brand and quantitative. In your plans, I want your suggestions. Okay, this is my objective. And usually this kind of research you do against the main objective of the plan. So let's say your main objective was to increase the awareness of your brand in 10%, no? So what is the kind of research you're going to do at the end of the year? Before you will have a research plan. What's the brand awareness now? And what's the brand within the target group? What will be when I finish? So you needed to have planned that against the objective that you had initially, yeah? Or engagement, no? Or loyalty, all these type of questions you have, it depends on, usually this type of research is against the bigger picture, not the opening rate, the day-to-day of the activities. It's to measure what is in the mind of the customer. Okay? So you measure the outcome of your marketing programs to identify if the activities are being successful to create the identity you want, and then you measure what's in the customer mind to see the image that you were trying to create matches the identity, okay? And then finally you get to this point of the outcome. Okay, I will just show you some one example of a company that does this type of research, but we are not going into in depth in this because it's very complex. Okay, so Young & Rubicon has what they call the brand asset valuator, and like Interbrand, companies that wanted to determine the value of their brand, they tend to they can hire this type of research. So this obviously was a pitch, but it did describe quite well how they include the financial aspects to get to the value of the brand. And big organizations hire this to hire companies like this in Interbrand to calculate the goodwill within their P&L.